Hi Year 4, Mrs. Norman here with what is, I hope, our last geography lesson online, because we are back to school next week. Very exciting. Now, a bit of a warning with this one. There are lots of different tribal names and things that I don't necessarily know how to pronounce very well. So I'm going to give it my best shot. I am a little bit tired as well after a long day. So have a little giggle at me if I get it wrong. But I'm going to persevere. Okay. So all about the Amazon tribe, so building on our knowledge from last week. So the Amazon Rainforest. The Amazon forest is the world's largest rainforest. We know that. And as you can see on the map, the biggest part of the Amazon Rainforest is in Brazil. 62% of it, in fact. People speak about the Amazon Rainforest being the lungs of the earth, and this is because 20% of the photosynthesis that happens on our planet takes place there. In photosynthesis, plants transform carbon dioxide into oxygen, which humans and animals need to breathe. So as you can see from the key here in this map, the green is the untouched forest, the yellow was the deforestation up to 1997, and the red the deforestation just from 1998 to 2006. So I can only imagine what a map would look like now. So how many Amazon tribes are there? The Amazon rainforest receives its name from the Amazon River, which you can see in the picture. It is home to more than 400 tribes, also known as tribal peoples and indigenous peoples. So we talked about indigenous. It means that they have been there forever. They live at one, don't they, with the Amazon rainforest, and that's their natural place to be. So these tribal peoples have always lived in the Amazon rainforest, which makes it their ancestral home. And we talked about ancestors last week, and I said that my ancestors, my great-great-great-great-great-great-granddad, and my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, so their family have been there forever. So international law recognises the rights of tribal peoples to live in their lands. This is known as tribal peoples' land rights. Both the United Nations and other organisations that protect human rights have declared that ancestral lands belong to the tribes that live in them, and they need to be protected. In reality, these tribes are in danger, especially those who have had no contact with other people. So they are known as uncontacted peoples. That means we still haven't had any contact with them up until now. So dangers to the Amazon tribes. Now we're going to look at some historic dangers, and we're going to look at some more up-to-date dangers as well. So you can take both of those in consideration with the tasks today. So Amazon tribes face many dangers, and the most significant being colonisation and deforestation. Well, we know about deforestation. Colonisation is something a little bit different. So there was a lot of time, a lot of people a long time ago that used to go travelling out, and they were explorers. Britain were very, very good at that. They would send explorers out to go and colonise. We colonised Australia, we colonised lots and lots of different countries. And that means basically sending people over and taking them over and making people live the way that we quite like them to live, and getting some sort of political ruling going in that country, even though it didn't belong to us, for example. So when European settlers arrived in the Americas in the 15th century, millions of indigenous people died due to diseases such as flu that the settlers brought with them. Nowadays, we have all our injections and our immunisations and things like that. We're immunised for lots. These poor people in the tribes, they don't actually have access to that. So there's going to be a little bit of talk about, simple illnesses that we have medicines for. They don't. And even though we get a lot of our medicines from the Amazon tribes rainforest, they don't have them because they are not modernised like we are. So we have lots of science, and we have lots of technology that helps us develop lots of vaccines and immunisations and things. So we are not as at risk of these things as they would be. So today, colonisation comes in the form of land grabbers, and these are people who settle illegally, often by means of violence, in the lands where tribal peoples live, bringing with them issues such as malaria. Now, malaria is a different kind of illness, and again, if they've not had any medication or anything against malaria, then unfortunately, it's going to affect them more than it would you or I if we had an injection against malaria. So deforestation. In 2001, the Amazon rainforest covered 5.4 million kilometres squared. That's approximately 87% of the surface it originally covered. So that's quite a lot of percentage. It's already gone down, isn't it? It's only 87% now. Most of the deforestation occurred in the Brazilian forests, mainly due to cattle ranching and crop growing, so all that cattle farming that we were talking about before. However, in areas where tribes have been able to stay in their lands, deforestation has been stopped. So scientists have referred to the lands of tribal peoples as the most important barrier to the Amazon deforestation. So the most important thing to stop it is tribal people staying where they are in their lands. So the Amazon rubber boom. So the Amazon rubber boom took place between 1879 and 1912. The boom occurred as a result of several events. Now, if you like things like Formula One or you're into cars, you might recognise the two names coming up now as tyre manufacturers. So firstly, in the middle of the 19th century, Charles Goodyear discovered that cooking and treating latex from rubber trees turned it into a product that they had many different uses for. So this was followed by the invention of tyres by John Dunlop in 1888. Finally, Henry Ford, notice that name there as well, children, Ford cars, began mass production of the newly invented motor car at around the same time. These events created a pressing need for rubber, so the rubber boom. People wanted it. So when it became known that the rubber tree grew abundantly, that means lots and lots of it, in the Amazon rainforest, thousands of fortune seekers rushed to the lands of the Amazon tribes. However, they needed workers to collect the latex. Tens of thousands of members of the Amazon tribes were enslaved. So that means they were captured and they were forced to work without any money and without wanting to. So they were enslaved, and those who managed to escape were victims of the epidemics, a bit like pandemics that we've got at the moment, so the epidemic that the fortune seekers brought with them. So lots of different illnesses that the poor Amazon tribes were not used to. Okay, here's one of the first tricky words of the day. So the Yanomami. The Yanomami are considered the largest isolated tribe in South America. That means they're isolated. They don't have any contact with anyone else. Their population is approximately 35,000. They live in northern Brazil and southern Venezuela in communal circular homes known as llanos or chabanos. The llano has a big central space for celebrations, because we know that tribes people like to celebrate and dance, don't we? We learnt about that last week. The Yanomami sleep in hammocks made from cotton or pine fibre, hung from the roofed area of the llano. One of the greatest threats to their survival is a road that was built in the 1970s, so quite a while back now. This was used during a gold rush in the 1980s, where 40,000 gold miners invaded the Yanomami land after a survey project detected minerals deposits in the area. So that long little sentence means basically they did a survey of the area, checked out the area, had a little look around, tried out some of the soils and things, and realised actually there were loads and loads of minerals, otherwise known as the gold, in that area. And as we know, gold's expensive. The gold prospectors brought diseases to the area to which the Yanomami had no immunity, because they hadn't, unfortunately, been inoculated. They hadn't had their injections and things, because they don't live in the modern world, do they? So in only 7 years, 20% of the Yanomami died. The Tupi. Before colonisation, the Tupi were one of the most numerous tribes indigenous to Brazil. It is estimated that in 1500, so a long, long time ago, when the Portuguese arrived in Brazil, their population was around 1 million then. Nearly the same as the population in Portugal at the time. So Portuguese people arrived in Brazil, and they took over a lot of the area. But actually there was about 1 million, this one tribe, which is the same as all the people in Portugal at that time. However, unfortunately, they were also enslaved, or they were killed by diseases, again transmitted by the Portuguese and later Brazilian settlers. Having never been exposed to these diseases, the Tupi had no immunity to them, and one of these diseases was smallpox. Now, luckily, we've eradicated that over here, but unfortunately, those poor Tupis fell ill and ended up very unwell indeed. Today, it's a tricky one, hang on. The Tupi Namba are one of the few remaining Tupi communities that have had their land rights recognised in the Brazilian state of Bahia. So that's really cool. So they've actually had their land recognised. So therefore, like I was saying before, it stopped the deforestation in that area, which is really good. Oh, one that I recognised from last week, I could say this. The Quepos. So the Quepos live in the vast area that spreads across the Brazilian state of Pará and Mato Grosso. They lived along the Xingu River. I'm sure that's how you say it. If not, you can correct me in the Teams this afternoon. They use intricate black body paints to cover their entire bodies, which allow them to blend into their surroundings when hunting in the forests. It is estimated that they number around 9,000. The main threat to their survival comes from hydroelectric dams that the Brazilian government have begun to build along the Xingu River. The biggest of these is the Belo Monte Dam, which is the 4th largest in the world. Oh, sorry, I had the lovely cleaning lady just emptying the bins. I'm going to carry on. Okay. The Awa. The Awa live in the eastern Amazon rainforest. There are approximately 350 members, 100 of which are uncontacted. So like we said before, they've never had contact with the modernised or outside world. Although they originally lived in settlements, they adopted a nomadic gatherer-hunter lifestyle around 1800 to escape from European invaders. So they did used to live in settlements and have like roundhouses or whatever, but unfortunately they were forced into going, okay, we're going to wander and hunt and gather. Sorry, that cleaning lady's gone now, so hopefully a bit quieter. Having had so little contact, or none in the case of their uncontacted members, with the outside world, they are especially vulnerable to diseases. Illegal logging companies have been accused of hiring gunmen to kill them so that they can exploit the rainforest, because we know if we're living there, they get that protection, don't they? So that's awful. As a tribe use bows and arrows to hunt, they cannot defend themselves against firearms. Another tricky one. Okay, the Kuru. So the Kuru are one of the tribes living in the Javari Valley, indigenous territory in the western Brazilian Amazon. Their main threat comes from the outbreak of diseases as well, particularly hepatitis B and C, that have taken place since the tribes were contacted in the 1990s. So not so long ago. It might seem a long time ago to you children, but not to me. I remember the 1990s very well. The majority of the Kuru are uncontacted. After various attempts, the Brazilian FUNAI, so that stands for the Government's Protection Against the Indigenous Peoples, contacted a small group of them to provide protection in the form of vaccines. So that's a really good thing, isn't it? Then we've got Guardians of the Rainforest. That's a lovely name. In recent years, scientists have discovered that the land of tribal peoples acts as barriers to deforestation. So using satellite images, researchers have observed indigenous reserves in Brazil. These are lands that have been protected by the FUNAI so that illegal loggers and land grabbers cannot enter them. They found that deforestation was 66% higher outside indigenous reserves than inside, while forest fires were considerably higher outside the reserves. This shows that Amazon tribes have a truly respectful and environmentally friendly lifestyle, and that we can consider them guardians of the rainforest. Okay, so we're on to your tasks. Tasks here. So paddling. Today, I would like you to draw out a mind map of all the ways that you think the President of Brazil could protect the tribal peoples. And your red pen is it ever okay to try and colonise indigenous people? So is it okay to kind of take over and try and make them more modernised? Snorkeling. Write a letter to the President of Brazil explaining all the ways that you think he could protect the tribal peoples. And your red pen is, do you think it is beneficial to tribes to colonise them? Do you think the tribes will have lots of benefits from being taken away from what is traditionally known to them and given more modernised ways to live? You might have two ideas on this one, thinking about vaccines and thinking about other areas of their lives and how traditional they are. Diving, write a speech directed at the President of Brazil explaining all the ways that you think he could protect the tribal peoples. You may like to record it. And your red pen is it ever okay to try to colonise indigenous people? And you need to justify your reasons. That means you need to explain your reasoning using really good, high-quality language, please. This is your last, like I said, geography online. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've not giggled too much at my terrible pronunciation of things. And we will see you next week.